Greetings. Hello. God bless you all. Okay. Brother Damon Chief Jones here. Just thought I'd wear my shades for a minute. I like these things. They got these bamboo deals on the side. Make them look pretty cool, different. And they're very nice around your head and ears. Anyway, I'll get straight to the point. There is a big difference between a professional opinion and a personal opinion. There's also, even within professional opinions, there is scope. There's probably a different analogy I could use if I had thought about it, but it basically means the scope of your specialty within that field. Okay? Like, you can have a person with a college degree that went and learned about computers. Okay? So if they gave you an expert professional opinion on computers, they're in their scope. But if they did not learn how to write code, then they're not an expert in that area. They may know a little bit about it, but they're not, it wouldn't be a professional opinion. Some people say, well, if somebody's paying you money, then it's professional. Not necessarily. I guess it could be. I mean, like people that go play sports, they don't have no degree in sports. They don't have no certification in sports, but people basically come up through the ranks and they hire them, and it's a sporting event. So they're professional athletes. So there is some room for a little discussion in that area. A personal opinion, anybody can have a personal opinion. It's like the nose on your face. Everybody's got one of those. Unless you got a birth defect. And if you do, I'm sorry. I don't want to offend nobody. If I want to give a professional law enforcement or peace officer opinion, I am highly qualified, highly trained, and certified, and have actual field experience. And this has been going on for 40 years. So, in the area of law enforcement, the enforcement of laws and all the duties and collateral duties we are called upon to do, then I'm your expert. In fact, in Texas and Florida, I was named as an expert witness by the presiding case judge in two different cases, one in Texas and one in Florida. I don't want to mislead anybody and say, oh, I was in several cases in all these states. No, it was just 2 states, Texas and Florida, and they were district courts. And they named me an expert witness in the area of law enforcement and law enforcement interpretations of the law, policies and procedures that may or may not be in compliance with those laws, and why not, and so forth and so on, and what's normal and abnormal. In fact, about 6 months ago, I can't remember exactly, I could go look up the date, but I filed a law enforcement practitioner's opinion, professional opinion, as a law enforcement practitioner / peace officer for the 11th Circuit Federal Court to go before a federal judge. I had to render a law enforcement opinion on law enforcement matters, dealing with policies, procedures, and the law in a state and on a national level. So I gave that, and I can give that all day long. Anybody that wants a professional law enforcement opinion, I'm entitled, eligible, qualified to do it. I worked in everything you can do, from the front door to the back door, in a patrol car, at a jail, corrections, courthouses. I've done everything. So I can't think of anything, for the most part, that I'm not qualified in. But when I said that, let me go back and say this. If it had, for example, to do with the Doppler radar, I am Doppler radar certified, okay? So I can give an expert opinion about the use and general theories of radar, and I can explain it. However, I cannot give an expert opinion of the inner workings, the computer boards and analog or digital circuitry and so forth. I can't do that. So on one side I can give a professional opinion, on the other side I can't. That's just like, for example, say if you had an attorney and he's a constitutional attorney. He isn't going to be an expert and probably not considered a professional opinion in family law, for example. And on the other hand, if you had somebody in family law, they would not be an expert in constitutional law. We think about these different things. So, just like in the law, you got real estate attorneys, you have maritime or admiralty attorneys that deal with ships and law of the sea and international treaties and all these sort of things. You got family law, which is like mainly child custody, juveniles, and other things that they deal with specifically in their constitutional attorneys. Some are for dealing with their expertise is in the national constitution. Some are in the state constitution. Now they have a general overview of principles, theories, and so forth, but no expert. They're not an expert except in their area. Let me put it to you this way. Would you go to a foot doctor for brain surgery? Would you do that? Absolutely not. They both went to medical school. They both have a medical doctor license or physician license, or license as a physician, should I say, or medical doctor, or DO, or whatever their training is. Okay? But a foot doctor can't do brain surgery. If you want to do it, go ahead. I wouldn't. I don't know nobody else that would. But on the other hand, you wouldn't have the brain surgeon working on your feet because he don't know that. He knows the brain. So, back in the mid to late 80s, they started moving all professions. Like you had professional plumbers, commercial plumbers, residential plumbers. And there were some that were in both. You had commercial and residential electricians. Okay, now, mechanics. You have diesel mechanics. Then you have gasoline mechanics. You have people that can do anything with analog, but nothing digital. You have people that do anything digital, but not analog. And some can do both. But buyer beware. Know if the person is telling you something, if it's a professional opinion or it's not. You need to look at their disclaimers. If I give you a law enforcement practitioner's opinion, I'm good. I'm good all day and all night. I'm doing this as educational, and I was taught and trained in the academy by judges, lawyers, state-approved instructors over and over and over, that part of my duty as a peace officer was to educate the public on law enforcement matters. What can you do, what can you not do, and why? And what does the law say? And what is the interpretation of that law based on case precedents, and so forth, and so on. And if something had not been challenged. So, in that area, I can go all day long, and I'm good to go. I always tell you, because some people get mixed up, I am not a bar card lawyer, I'm not a bar card judge. Never claimed to be, don't want to be. I could have sat for the state bar many years ago, because there were a handful of states, 5 or 6, that you could go challenge the exam, and I could have done it. I believe there's still one state you can still do that unless they've changed it. And I could go sit, and I'm sure I could get a bar card. I'm not interested in it. That's not my forte. I had a lot of attorneys ask me to go sit for it and offered me to go to work in their offices buku years ago. I'm talking like in the early 90s. So let's 22, 25 years ago. And I said, I like going out and helping the public. I don't want to sit in a desk, and I don't want to sit in a courtroom all day, or a combination. I'd rather be out in the field helping people. I got in it to help people, not harass people. You're either part of the solution or part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution and go help people. So when people say things, look if there's a disclaimer. If they're not, and you take, say like if I didn't have these disclaimers and said I'm not this, I am this, but I'm not that. And I'm not advising you what to do or what not to do. I'm just talking and trying to help educate people in general. So anything you do at your own risk. But, for example, if a cop comes on here and says, you can do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then he says, based upon a Supreme Court decision so-and-so, he's probably good to go. If he says you can do da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and he has no disclaimers and doesn't say all these things, might be an issue. Okay? That's just like if you're a attorney in one state, but you're practicing in another state that you're not licensed in. Bad business. You know, there's actually not that many, but I have found a few attorneys that are on this national and international YouTube thing. And for whatever reason, they like to give a lot of legal advice. And they don't put out no disclaimers. So anybody in the entire country or around the world that takes what they say and go act upon it, then they're reasonably going to say, well, this man or woman is a licensed attorney, and I thought they were in my state, or I thought they could do this, and I listened to their advice, and I took their opinions, and now, boom-yah, I could see malpractice happening, legal malpractice. And also, just like police officers, every state has a archives, or should I say a regulatory agency that regulates law enforcement. And they have one that deals with the judiciary for judges and attorneys and the Bar Association, okay? So we have standards and conduct we must follow. So if I did something wrong, not only could somebody report me to my department, and they would have internal affairs, or the governing body would say, let's turn this over to the county or to the state to investigate this, or it might be federal, we're going to turn over the FBI or DEA or whomever to investigate this officer. But also, whatever state agency that's certified or licensed me or any other police officer, they can take a complaint direct. And you know, what they do with it's another thing. So if you get a hold of their legal division and say, hey, I've got this legal complaint on this officer, I got video, I got audio recordings, you know, they could take it and fly with it. They could run it by the local DA or the Attorney General's office. If you have a problem with an officer of the court, like there's attorneys or officers of the court, they're judicial officers of the court, okay? So, if they do malpractice, if they give advice and they don't have disclaimers and people get hurt, people misunderstand things, or say they're cyber stalking somebody, or they're in behavior, conduct, and actions that's unbecoming of an attorney or unbecoming of a police officer, then there are disciplinary actions, anywhere from suspensions to revocations. So every year there's numerous police officers that lose their certifications and they're banned from law enforcement. That's it. Over. No more. No more. They can't be a cop no more. And every year there's judges and there's attorneys. More for attorneys. Usually once you get to be a judge, I think they pretty well have figured out how the system works and what they can do, can't do, and quote, what they can get away with. Okay? Attorneys, especially very young attorneys, like, a few months in, up to maybe a couple years, there's been a lot of them that just go, psh, because they get this grandiose idea, they get this God complex that they're smarter and know better and can do better than anybody else. They get in a lot of trouble. So whether it's a cop, it's an attorney, it's a judge, and they give opinions within their field, and specifically with a field within a field, or a discipline within a discipline. See, some places consider correctional officers law enforcement officers, quote, for purposes of firearms, but not anything else. Some places say that a police officer perhaps could act as a jailer or correctional officer under emergency conditions or on a limited amount of time. A correctional officer could take certain law enforcement authority for a limited time, just like, I'd have to look back and make sure I'm not telling you wrong. And y'all feel free to look this up. Don't take my word for it. But let's just say, in Florida, for example, a correctional officer, say there's a break at the prison or at the jail, correctional facility, somebody busted out of the cage. Okay. A correctional officer can, quote, retake the inmate. Now, what the actual statute says, I don't remember. I haven't had to look that up for a while. I used to know this stuff like the back of my hand. Now, Florida Standards for Police is Chapter 943. It says all the requirements to be a police officer in Florida. It's under Chapter 943, Florida statutes. One more time, Chapter 943. But you can look up the statutes for lawyers there. Every state's got their own bar association. They got their own, you become licensed plumbers, electricians, whatever you do, there's some sort of license or certification in it, as a rule. And there's differences between a profession and a trade. Welding, I believe, is still considered a trade, and being a mechanic is a trade. And when I was first in law enforcement in 1978, law enforcement was considered a trade. But by the mid to late 80s, they started pushing to call themselves a profession. And a lot of places started requiring some college education. Some places even required a 2-year education. 2-year college education, should I say. Anyway, I'm doing my dead level best to make sure that my videos are 20 minutes or less in the future. Sometimes I'm going to make it, sometimes I'm not. Anyway, if you got a question, ask. If it's realistic, I'm going to do my best to answer it. We all know about trolls, and we know that specifically in this auditing community, I know probably about a dozen or so people that are hardcore trolls. And each one of them, we know, has a bare minimum of 6 dummy accounts. So now If you got your 12 people, you're around 72 dummy accounts. So they could flood my channel or any other auditor's channel or anybody they get ticked off at and make it look like they're asking questions or making statements to stir up doo-doo. You know, keep pouring the water on it, stirring it, it's going to stay there forever. Anyway, the point is, I know myself and other auditors have had just a really bad time the last year or two with, you know, certain trolls. Anyway, you'll keep seeing their names pop up and they'll say ridiculous things, ask ridiculous things. And if they do it, I'm going to deal with it how I deal with it. I hope you like me. I hope you enjoy what I'm doing. If you don't, then you don't have to watch. But if you leave outlandish comments, depending on my standard, it's my channel. On my channel, I decide. If the comment seems over the top to me, it seems nasty, foul, I may leave it, I may remove it. Depends on what it says. I've always said that. And I report trolls to Google and YouTube on a regular basis. And we pretty well figured out who all the dummy accounts are, or at least most of them. But anyway, I just wanted y'all to be aware of what's going on. Most of you are, some of you aren't. And this lady called Granted State Transparency. Granted State Transparency. She is very, very good. Very knowledgeable. I think she's around 14 or 15,000 subs, and man, she just exploded. She's really good. She's really cool. She's a nice lady. God bless her. And if you get a chance, go by and check her out. She's wonderful. God bless y'all. I love y'all. Have a great day. May the blessing of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, be upon you. If you have some other religion, okay. If you're Christian, great. If you ain't, okay. I don't push it on nobody. I'm just here and throwing out my blessings. Poop. Okay. See y'all later. God bless. Bye bye.